Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. Due to YouTube's changing quote-unquote community standards, I created a channel called Grumpy Old Fart over on Rumble, a free speech alternative to YouTube. You can see all of my stuff over there, including my political and social commentary, as well as my current events videos. The links to my YouTube and Rumble channels, as well as links to let you order my books, are in the description of this video. If you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. Now, on with the video. Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. I'm doing a historic haunting video on the Rose Hall Plantation. The Rose Hall Plantation in Montego Bay, Jamaica, was built and or established in 1770. Now, the plantation itself was owned by John Palmer, and this was... It's got a storied past, but I'm going to go back into the history of this place for a little bit, and please bear with me, and you'll understand why it's one of the most haunted places on the planet. Annie Mae Patterson was born in 1802 to an Irish father and an English mother. The Patterson family moved to Haiti when Annie was very, very young. She learned voodoo there from her Haitian nanny. Annie's parents died when she was 10 under very mysterious circumstances. She was raised by the nanny until the woman died 8 years later. Annie intended to marry wealth, so she moved to Jamaica. She quickly gained the attention of the English plantation owner named John Palmer, the guy who owned the Rose Hall Plantation. They married, and Annie became the mistress of the plantation. Quickly becoming bored with Palmer, she began taking lovers, using slaves in that capacity. When she grew tired of her lover, whichever slave or whatever it was, or if she thought that Palmer was becoming suspicious, the slave lover would be murdered. Sometimes by herself. Sometimes she got other people to do it. But this was a fairly common occurrence by all accounts. After 6 years of marriage, she poisoned Palmer and inherited his money. I think there's a law about you have to be married for so long before you inherit the money, and she waited 6 years and then she poisoned the guy and got his money. The slaves began referring to Annie as the White Witch. Annie married and murdered 2 more husbands, taking their wealth as well. Annie also enjoyed watching slaves getting flogged or beaten for her amusement. She had a streak of sadism. Each time a husband died, their room was closed off forever. Annie even had 2 pits in the house, at least on the property. She used them as her dungeon. Whenever slaves would run away, she would take them and throw them. When they caught them, they would take them and throw them into the pit and let them starve to death with no water. She used it as a deterrent for slaves escaping. And whenever she would have somebody murdered, she would send groups of slaves to bury bodies, and then send another group of slaves to murder those slaves, so that there was no trace of where the bodies were buried. She was just about as sadistic and evil as they come. What all of this boils down to is that Rose Hall is the great house in the entire plantation is one of the most haunted places in Jamaica. Tourists and staff alike have reported dozens of apparitions, slamming doors, ghostly screams, disembodied voices, cold spots, you name it, it's there. They've experienced it. A maid, at one point, early 1900s, a maid was thrown from a balcony to her death by unseen forces. People watched it happen, but they have no idea why it happened. Now, when I was doing research, I found a book. My wife got it for me for Christmas. My wife or my son one. By a man named Jeff Bellinger. Belanger. It's called The World's Most Haunted Places. Really great book. I found a lot of good material in here. I'm going to read an excerpt from here, or at least parts of it. I'm starting on page 52. By the way, you need to get the book. It's really good. The World's Most Haunted Places by Jeff Bellinger. I hope I'm saying his name right. Starting on page 52. In December of 1831, a dashing young gentleman named Robert Rutherford from England came to Rose Hall Plantation to fill the position of bookkeeper. Annie took an interest in the gentleman instantly, as did her housekeeper, Millicent. This is where the story of Rose Hall turns into a murderous soap opera that would play itself out in only a few weeks. Millicent's grandfather, Taku, was a powerful voodoo witch and also an occasional lover of Annie Palmer. Robert Rutherford, far from the strict society of England, fancied both Millicent and his new employer, Annie Palmer. This infuriated Annie, who wanted Rutherford's attentions for herself. The White Witch of Rose Hall cast a spell on Millicent, causing her to die within 9 days. Taku was infuriated. He stormed into the mansion and strangled Annie Palmer to death in her bed in 1831. So that's how she died. Annie was entombed in an above-ground cement coffin that still sits in the east garden of the house. Some of her religious-minded former slaves tried to cast spells on her grave to keep her spirit locked up, but their magic didn't work. Annie wouldn't be stopped by death. And it goes on. I put that in there. I read that excerpt because this tells you the level of depravity and evil that this White Witch, Annie, was capable of. And it tells the level of violence that was on that plantation. The White Witch, and now keep in mind, there's no way of knowing how many people were murdered there, okay? Because she didn't keep records and everything was hidden. The White Witch has become something of a boogeyman for Jamaican children, and I can certainly see why. That would not be somebody I would want to run into on a dark and stormy night. Now, if you have a chance to go visit the Rose Hall Plantation, that would be a scary place. I don't know that I could make that trip. I don't know that I could walk onto that property. Just knowing what all happened there, that's just ridiculous. But, as I said, it's one of the most haunted places in Jamaica, probably the most haunted places in the world. So, if you get a chance, and if you've got the steely guts and the heart of stone to go there and check that out, hey, knock yourself out. I won't be joining you. You folks have a good day. God bless one and all. Devo Poland, a scientific representative of a pacifist race called the Gandhiri, is sent away as an exchange officer. His objective, to learn the one skill his species never developed, to fight. And he's sent to learn that skill from the one species who does it better than any other in the galaxy, humans. If you like science fiction with an upbeat military tone, check out my novel, Vanguard 1.